the 2020 national championship team was crowned as the greatest of all time, greatest in school history. Well, what qualifies as the greatest of all time? Yes, they were certainly the best offensive team of all time. And in today's society, that draws in the numbers, that gets people excited. But I think it's a bit skewed. It doesn't take into account the great defenses. And we got two gentlemen on this panel were part of some of the greatest defenses in school history. EJ, as we said before we got on air, was a part of a squad that only allowed 5.5 points per game. George was a part of one of the most horrific defenses in school history in 1992. And then, 2011 can definitely make its case too. But I haven't really seen a defense, not only at Alabama, but really college football, that's been able to replicate that kind of performance since. So we got to show some love to the defensive guys. George, I'll let you lead off. And then, if you would, man, kind of tell us where you're feeling on this. When you post that, what are your initial thoughts? What qualifies to you as the greatest of all time?
Yeah, so that kind of struck a nerve with me just because, I think there is an interesting debate on what actually qualifies to be the better team. And it makes it difficult when you got to go across, 20 years or 30 years to do that. But if your team's not complete, right, and we weren't complete either, all right, I can say that our offense wasn't blowing the lights out, but our times was different too. Right?
Uh-huh.
So when I'm talking about this, what I look at, because most of the comments come and say, well, if you bring our team, 1992 team, up into the 2000s or whatever, we wouldn't be able to move the ball because we didn't, we only ran the ball, didn't throw very much. And I want to flip it. And I hadn't put this in there, but I like to flip it. And I bet EJ would say this is you put those offensive guys of 2020 and played against our defense, I'm willing to say some of them guys would get punked and probably wouldn't be able to play because the rules are different.
I agree.
There are wide receivers that, guys, we used to be able to – it was legal for us to hit wide receivers in the throat. In the throat. Choke their asses out. Sorry. And some of these guys couldn't have played back in that era back then. We could hit them, rip their neck off.
Slap them.
You slap them inside of the head and playing press man to man. We could jam them all the way down the field. So they weren't going to be able to catch the ball. So I don't think it's fair to always say, well, the older teams couldn't play in today's age. I'm always thinking, hey, bring them guys back in the time a little bit and let's see.
Too soft.
Let's see, dude. Why do you think they got rid of horse collar tackles and all this other kind of stuff? Because they were, dog, you could do whatever you needed to do to make a play, including offensive linemen, laying on people, pancaking people. You can pick somebody up, tackle. I mean, like body slam them.
You know what? You know what, George? Though you making a great point, and it kind of goes back to the LeBron Jordan thing too. I believe that if Jordan played right now in his prime, easy 60 points a game. But I don't think LeBron can play back in his era like he played now because of the rules. And honestly, as far as the debate on those teams, I don't think that 2020 team, I don't think that was the best team Alabama had. I think they had the best offense, but not the best team because times are different. And you can get away with a whole lot more. I would like to see that team play an old school Alabama team and see what happens.
I guarantee you, these defenses could not handle our offense. We were our wishbone offense, and we could cut. See, these guys don't cut anymore. Yeah. See, they kind of blow your knee out. We could basically have helmet-to-helmet contact, and I broke 5 helmets when I was at Alabama. So those, trying to replace those old bike helmets that now what I think they call air shuts or something. We used to crack helmets and bend face masks. And I think one of the things people forget when you look at a particular year team, also look at the era because Georgia and them broke our record. They were 45 and 4. Their 4 years that he was there, we were 44-4. So we won 3 SEC championships. Should have won 3 national championships because we got ripped off our freshman year.
Well, I tell you this, 2020 team, that wasn't even the best offense of in Alabama's history. You know, I'm gonna go back to some of the offenses that Lane Kiffin had. Those were some of the better offenses. So when you look at the 2020 offense, that offense wasn't as good as some of those other offenses. And when you look at that
I
defense,
can't say that, Mom. I can't agree with that.
No. I'm gonna say it was a top 3 offense, but it wasn't one of the better offenses, though. Again, here's the thing about it. When you look at that 2020 offense, you got to look at one area. You look at that wide receiver room, and that's what separated them from everybody else. But when you look at the offensive line play, was it the same offensive line play that they had in 09, in 10, 11, 12? It wasn't that same dominant force up front. So when I say it wasn't the best, I'm talking about the complete overall offense. That's
they weren't running the ball as much. They weren't running the ball as much. They were more so of a passing or a read option team. They weren't just smash them out like those teams. But I think what's his name, the guy that coaches at Texas now, Sark, he did a great job. Now you can't take anything from Lane Kiffin. The only reason I believe the offense wasn't as good because Lane Kiffin got gone quick. They got rid of him. But he had some good offense.
When have you ever seen an offensive coordinator call plays and doing this as soon as the ball snapped on a regular basis?
We had one fan question, or actually comments on this when we were comparing the 92 team to the 2020 team. They said that the 92 team would have been more physical and David Palmer would have had a field day against the 2020 defense.
Yeah.
Well, you know, here's one of the things a lot of people don't understand. And I feel like I can break this down for one reason only. Being at Alabama from 98 to 2000, I was in that transition period from what Teague is talking about to what current football is, when all the rule changes started to occur, when they started to remove the physicality from the game of football and they started to focus more on player safety. That's when you started to see the game get a bit softer. So, no, I don't think that these teams could play back then in the early 90s, the 70s, the 80s. I don't think they could have played in the late 90s. Because, again, the game has changed so much with the focus on player safety, and it's not the same sport anymore.
No, you can't even breathe on the guy, man. If you look at the guy with big eyes,
flag,
they looking at the ref like, hey, man, he looking at me crazy. You know, throw the flag. No, bro, man, come on, let's play some football. You know,
you're right. Because the game has changed. Once they shifted that focus to player safety, you no longer had people scared of defenses. You know, like the guys who I played with, we still joke about it to this day. They all say, I wouldn't have finished many games because now, like you said, Teague, you touch a guy the wrong way, it's over. You're out of here.
I can't even say that the 2020 offense was the best offense that ever came through Alabama because, like Marvin said, yeah, we had a great receiving room, but them guys in 2020 also didn't play with the crowd as well. They didn't play with a away crowd. It was just like practice to them. So however they perform in practice, how they perform in the game.
Great point.
So it was all flat across the board. So I have to say, like, 2012 defense, you know, you got a lot of defenses out of 09 defense. Like, what about the time that we had 2 running back that had 1,000 yards and a receiver that had 1,000 yards and the QB had 3,500 yards? It's hard to compare these offenses and defenses because of, at one moment, our defense scored 12, 13 times.
Yeah, but Bo, to my point, when I said that receiver room, you brought it up again. Them dudes ain't worried about no safety sitting there sighting them up, ready to take their heads off because they know they protected. It ain't the same.